Welcome to Britannica. I don't think people understand the full extent of Martin Luther King Jr.'s struggle. Martin Luther King Jr. stands as a beacon of hope and equality in American history. His tireless fight for civil rights continues to inspire generations. Dr. King's powerful words and nonviolent actions challenged a nation to confront its deepest injustices. Yet, behind the public persona, a hidden struggle unfolded. Recently declassified files from the National Archives offer a glimpse into this struggle. These documents reveal the extent to which Dr. King was targeted by the very government sworn to protect its citizens. These files paint a chilling picture of relentless surveillance and covert operations. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, saw Dr. King as a threat. Hoover's fear and paranoia fueled a campaign to discredit and silence the civil rights leader. This campaign, known as COINTELPRO, employed a range of tactics. Wiretaps, informants, and smear campaigns became commonplace. The declassified files exposed the lengths to which the government went to undermine Dr. King's movement. Despite the constant pressure, Dr. King never wavered in his commitment to justice. The story of Martin Luther King Jr. is not just a historical account, it is a call to action. The files also reveal disturbing details, such as attempts to blackmail Dr. King with threats to expose his private life. The FBI even sent an anonymous letter urging him to commit suicide, a chilling testament to the lengths they would go. Despite these relentless attacks, Dr. King remained steadfast, his resolve unbroken. His legacy endures, a powerful reminder of the ongoing fight for justice and equality. The Montgomery bus boycott was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement, but it was not without its criticisms and challenges. The boycott began in December 1955, following Rosa Parks' arrest for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, quickly emerged as key leaders of the movement. Organizing such a large-scale protest required meticulous planning and coordination. Participants faced significant hardships, including long walks to work and the constant threat of violence. The boycott also faced fierce opposition from city officials and white residents, leading to arrests and intimidation. The SCLC and Dr. King were criticized by some for their non-violent approach, with detractors arguing it was too passive. There were also internal challenges, as not all members of the African American community agreed on the best strategies for the boycott. Despite these challenges, the boycott had a significant economic impact on the bus system and brought national attention to the issue of segregation. The boycott ultimately led to a Supreme Court ruling that declared segregation on public buses unconstitutional. The success of the Montgomery bus boycott solidified Dr. King and the SCLC's roles as prominent leaders in the fight for civil rights, despite the many criticisms and challenges they faced. The Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 marked a turning point in the civil rights movement. It also thrust a young Martin Luther King Jr. into the national spotlight. The boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus, lasted for 381 days. It crippled the city's transportation system and drew attention to the injustice of segregation. Dr. King, then a pastor in Montgomery, Alabama, emerged as a leader of the boycott. His message of nonviolent resistance resonated with the Black community. He urged them to fight for their rights with dignity and determination. The boycott's success proved the power of collective action and nonviolent protest. In 1957, inspired by the victory in Montgomery, Dr. King and other civil rights leaders founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC. The SCLC, with Dr. King as its president, became a major force in the civil rights movement. It organized protests, voter registration drives, and leadership training workshops across the South. However, declassified files reveal that Dr. King was under constant surveillance by the FBI, who sought to undermine his efforts. The FBI wiretapped his phones and monitored his activities, hoping to find information that could discredit him. These files also exposed personal details about his life, including allegations of extramarital affairs, which the FBI attempted to use against him. Despite these efforts to tarnish his reputation, Dr. King remained steadfast in his mission for equality and justice. On August 28, 1963, over 250,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The march, organized by a coalition of civil rights organizations, aimed to pressure the federal government to pass meaningful civil rights legislation. However, the event was not without its challenges and criticisms. There were significant concerns about security and potential violence. Critics also questioned the effectiveness of such a large demonstration. Despite these challenges, Dr. King delivered a message of hope, equality, and justice. He spoke of his dream of a nation where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. Dr. King's words resonated with the crowd and millions watching on television. His speech galvanized the nation's conscience and put immense pressure on the government to act. The March on Washington and Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech marked a turning point in the fight for civil rights. In 1964, at the age of 35, Martin Luther King Jr. became the youngest person ever awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize recognized his nonviolent resistance to racial segregation in the United States. It was a testament to the power of his message and his leadership in the civil rights movement. The award brought Dr. King international acclaim and solidified his status as a global icon for peace and justice. However, it also made him an even bigger target for the FBI. Hoover intensified the agency's efforts to discredit Dr. King, fearing his growing influence. Despite the constant threat of surveillance and harassment, Dr. King continued his work. In 1965, he led a series of marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, to demand voting rights for Black Americans. The marches, met with brutal violence from state troopers and white supremacists, shocked the nation. Declassified files reveal the extent of the FBI's surveillance, including wiretaps and informants. Hoover's memos show a relentless campaign to undermine King's credibility, even attempting to expose his personal life. The FBI's efforts included spreading rumors and fabricating evidence to tarnish his reputation. Yet, despite these dirty tactics, Dr. King's resolve and commitment to justice never wavered. The Nobel Peace Prize itself was not without controversy, as some critics argued that King's methods were too radical. Similarly, the Selma marches faced opposition from those who believed the protests incited unnecessary violence. Despite these controversies, Dr. King's unwavering commitment to nonviolence and justice continued to inspire millions. In his later years, Dr. King also faced criticism for speaking out against the Vietnam War, which some saw as a distraction from civil rights. His focus on economic inequality through the Poor People's Campaign also drew skepticism from those who felt he was overextending his reach. Nevertheless, Dr. King's broader vision for justice and equality continued to resonate, cementing his legacy as a transformative leader. As the civil rights movement gained momentum, Dr. King's vision expanded beyond the struggle for racial equality. He recognized the interconnectedness of social injustices. He began to speak out against poverty, economic inequality, and the Vietnam War. In 1967, Dr. King delivered a powerful speech at Riverside Church in New York City. In this speech, titled "Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence," he condemned the war as a symptom of a larger sickness in American society. He argued that the billions of dollars spent on the war were draining resources from domestic programs designed to help the poor. Dr. King's stance against the Vietnam War was controversial. It alienated some of his allies in the government and the civil rights movement. However, he believed that he had a moral obligation to speak out against all forms of injustice. He saw the fight for racial equality as part of a broader struggle for peace and justice for all people. Declassified files reveal that Dr. King was under constant surveillance by the FBI. The FBI monitored his phone calls, meetings, and even his personal life. J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, saw Dr. King as a threat and sought to discredit him. The FBI even attempted to blackmail Dr. King, urging him to abandon his activism. Despite these efforts, Dr. King remained steadfast in his commitment to justice and equality. His resilience in the face of adversity continues to inspire generations. The last years of Dr. King's life were marked by a growing sense of urgency and a deepening awareness of the challenges ahead. He faced increasing criticism from both within and outside the civil rights movement. Some questioned his tactics and his expanding focus on issues beyond race. Dr. King's personal life also came under intense scrutiny. The FBI's relentless campaign of harassment and intimidation took a toll on him and his family. The constant threat of violence and the weight of the movement's expectations weighed heavily on his shoulders. Despite these challenges, Dr. King never wavered in his commitment to nonviolence and his belief in the power of love to overcome hate. He continued to travel the country, speaking out against injustice and calling for a more just and equitable society. In 1968, Dr. King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee to support striking sanitation workers who were fighting for better wages and working conditions. Declassified FBI files revealed the extent of the Bureau's surveillance on Dr. King, including wiretaps and informants. These files also expose attempts to discredit him through allegations of extramarital affairs and communist ties. The pressure from these revelations added to the immense stress he was already under. Yet despite the personal and public attacks, Dr. King remained steadfast in his mission for equality and justice. On April 4, 1968, Dr. King was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. James Earl Ray was arrested and convicted for the murder, but controversies and conspiracy theories about the assassination persist. The aftermath of his death saw an outpouring of grief and anger, as the nation mourned the loss of a visionary leader. Despite the controversies, Dr. King's legacy endures, inspiring future generations to continue the fight for justice and equality. On April 4, 1968, while standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. He was 39 years old. His death sent shockwaves across the nation and the world, sparking riots in over 100 cities across the United States. The outpouring of grief and anger reflected the deep divisions within American society and the unfulfilled promise of racial equality. Dr. King's death was a devastating loss for the civil rights movement and for the nation as a whole. In the aftermath of his assassination, Dr. King's legacy became even more complex and contested. Some saw him as a martyr for the cause of civil rights, while others questioned his tactics and his vision for America. The debates about his life and work continue to this day, reflecting the ongoing struggle for racial equality and justice. However, there was no denying the profound impact he had on the nation and the world. Dr. King's assassination forced America to confront the deep-seated racism and injustice that he had dedicated his life to fighting. Declassified FBI files revealed that Dr. King was under constant surveillance, with the FBI attempting to discredit him by exposing alleged affairs and communist ties. J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, saw King as a threat and sought to undermine his influence. Despite these efforts, Dr. King's message of nonviolence and equality continued to resonate with millions. The declassified files provide a deeper understanding of the challenges he faced and the resilience he showed in the fight for justice. The mixed legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. continues to inspire and provoke debate, ensuring that his contributions to civil rights remain a vital part of American history. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy continues to shape the world today. His words and actions inspire people around the globe to fight for social justice and equality. He is remembered as a visionary leader, a courageous advocate, and a powerful voice for the voiceless. In the years following his death, Dr. King has been honored with numerous memorials, monuments, and tributes. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating a federal holiday in his honor. Martin Luther King Jr. Day observed on the third Monday of January is a day to remember his life and legacy and to continue his work for a more just and equitable society. The declassified files, while revealing a dark chapter in American history, also serve to show that MLK wasn't so perfect after all. Despite being subjected to relentless surveillance and harassment, he never wavered in his commitment to his cause. However, the files also reveal troubling aspects of his personal life. The FBI files allege that King had numerous extramarital affairs and was involved in inappropriate conduct, which they used to try to discredit him. Will Dr. King's legacy be tarnished forever now that these files have been opened? Time will tell. Dr. King's message of love, nonviolence, and social justice remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. It remains to be seen what will happen next in this ever-changing world. This concludes our deep dive into the declassified files of Martin Luther King Jr. If you found this video informative, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Britannica for more insightful content. Thank you for watching.